I'm Bob Marisich, Chief Executive Officer of International Market Centers. Welcome to Las Vegas and welcome to World Market Center. Both of you that are all of you that are here live and for you watching around the world. We're delighted to present one of Market's most popular programs, our fifth installment of Ahead of the Curve, where we see great designs and ideas through the eyes of some of the hottest designers in the United States today. We're pleased to have as our guests Darren Henault, Betsy Burnham, and Philip Gorrivan, an all-star cast of designers to view what's best at Market, moderated by our longtime friend, Today Show contributor, Susanna Salk. Susanna also, after this program, will be signing her new book, out March 27th, so hot off the press. Delighted to have that with us. I'm delighted to read it personally. It looks so exciting. For those of you at home, you can follow us on the Las Vegas Market pages of Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter. Enjoy what I'm sure is going to be a fabulous presentation by this talented group. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
We welcome all of you. We are having so much fun already. You'll hopefully be able to see that when we get talking. But I want to say, I do a lot of shows and panels and all this, but this is really the only show, I think, that invites top designers to come and preview it for you. Maybe you just arrived, maybe you've been here a couple of days, but I think it's such a luxury to have tastemakers shop it and kind of look through every corner and nook and cranny and then cull out some of their favorites, trends that they see, and present it to you today. You're gonna get to see some of our favorites, and hopefully that'll kind of enliven your eyes when you get out there. You can take a look at this inspiration board after we're done. This is really fun. This is actually the first year we're keeping this. But basically, these three shopped the show, right?
Yep.
Someone, every time you saw something that you loved, they took a picture of it. We also videotaped, which you'll see. And then you guys really came back here for a couple of hours after 2 days of looking at the show and brainstormed. And it's not like you were looking for trends. You said they found you. You saw similarities.
They really did. I mean, we curated the whole thing and made our selections and talked for a long time.
Yeah. And it was also really fun having 3 different viewpoints, because ordinarily we work alone, and then to be able to talk to your peers was really interesting.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was a really fun collaborative effort. And we also, just to add to Betsy's point, we really very much started with a blank slate here.
You did.
No expectation.
Right.
On what
Which
to
you
find.
said is often, you assimilated that to what it's like when you're
It's a
creating
lot
room
like
for
the
a client.
process of
It was the same
design, yeah.
process.
Yeah.
So again, take a look at the inspiration board. You'll see some of the showroom names, some of the pieces to give you a flavor. But what we're gonna do right now is all 3 each picked 3 trends. So we're gonna start with Philip's, and Philip loved and saw a lot of punches of color, a kind of grand tour trend, focusing a lot of the antiquities that inspired the new furniture, and geometric shapes. So if we roll the videotape, you'll feel like you were right there with him, and then we can chit-chat about it. So let's go to Philip's.
Here I am in the showroom of Seasonal Living, and this is my second day walking around Market, and I have to say, yesterday when I walked by the showroom, I was drawn to it like a moth to light, and it's because of the color. There are punches of color everywhere, and personally, I'm feeling very starved for color in design, and I see the trend going toward more color. Some of the things that I was drawn to were these deep reds, like the red of these ceramic stools I'm sitting on. I mean, even the fondue set and the napkins. I don't know about you, but I just wanted to immediately walk in here and sit at this table. Another example of color that I saw in Seasonal Living were these tables. These are ceramic, and I just love the color palette that's going on here. From this sort of burnt orange color to the turquoise teal color, which I've seen, it's quite a ubiquitous color at Market this year, this teal color, to this sort of pale, sort of marine green. You know, I love seeing color in accessories, like such as lamps and tables and you name it, but things that you normally wouldn't see being of a color. It's really exciting to see this. Here I am in the showroom of Saddlemans. I discovered this wonderful furry resource yesterday when I was walking around Market, and they sell cowhides of all types. And I was especially drawn to the color palette in these cowhides, from this amazing ruby red to the teal, this teal hide. And there's nothing wrong with the word teal, guys. It's a nice word. I know people refer to it as aqua and turquoise, but I'm standing behind teal. And I also love the richness of this, it's like a peacock. It's like this rich peacock color, which I think is really beautiful. And I especially love the fact that these, this is a way to weave in color into your home in a not so traditional way, right? Instead of paint and fabric, you can just lay down one of these amazing hides. And I mean, imagine just a punch of color you'd have in a room. The final piece de la resistance are these amazing apothecary chests in this sexy, sexy red color. I just love them. Imagine seeing these walk into an entry gallery of an apartment. Perfect, right? The next trend I'm finding at Market this year is what I call grand tour, which would be references to antiquities, especially all things Greco-Roman, from the subtle, such as these angel wings, which could easily have come off a Greek statue, to this Gorrivan, and just look at the classical detailing of the base, to the not so subtle, such as the bust of Medusa in the corner, which is right out of Clash of the Titans. I'm in the brownstone showroom right now, standing next to a klizmos chair. A klizmos chair is right out of ancient Greece, and again, a wonderful nod to the Grand Tour. It's a design that's thousands of years old, and it's been immortalized by so many furniture makers and designers over the centuries. And a prime example that antiquity and classic design is alive and kicking here at World Market. For those of you out there who are familiar with my work, you would know that I am absolutely in love with hexagons and octagons, and my new love is the dodecahedron. And I use them in many different ways. The traditional way of seeing these shapes would be in fabrics and in rugs. I was thrilled coming to Market and actually seeing these shapes employed in different ways, whether it's the back of this really cool chair, which is half of a hexagon right here, to seeing these shapes in a different way, such as these printed pillows. As you'll see, these shapes are everywhere at Market this year. It's really exciting. I'm standing in the Arterias showroom right now in front of two lanterns, which I think are a very successful interpretation of a geometric shape. In this case, these are dodecahedrons, which are my new love. And for those of you who don't know what a dodecahedron is, it's a 12-sided object. I'm in the Sunpan Modern Home showroom with these very chic octagonal tables. I love this coffee table. It's a very successful interpretation of an octagonal shape. And I'm actually sitting on a nightstand, which is also just a beautiful octagon. What else can I say? Octagons are definitely here to stay, which makes me very happy.
Thank you, Phil. That was so informative. We got a little history in there. We got a math lesson. Loved it. I think this is the first time this year that we're tagging each trend or piece with the showroom name on the left. So I hope that's helpful for you. If you see something that you love, write it down. And of course, afterwards, you can ask these guys, what was that? We have a Q&A. You can sort of circle back. But let's go through them briefly. Obviously, color. I love the way that you said that use it in unexpected ways, like with the cowhide rug. You wouldn't really expect that, and the peacock, and then of course your new love, the red. You're seeing red everywhere. You were taking pictures of fashion windows with red.
I was. Everywhere I've been going, I've been seeing red. I think it's really on trend right now, which is I love. It's one of my favorite colors.
Well, and the color was really popping out to us when we would walk around because there's just a lot of organic furniture and a lot of industrial design, and so that the colors stood out. So we'd go straight toward it.
Right. The gray tones are kind of gone. I mean, they're here. You see them in market, but where we kept seeing over and over again were the brighter tones.
Were the brighter tones. I loved those tables. What were those with the perforation and the different colors? They looked like end tables. I mean,
they're like drum tables.
Were they like drum tables?
Yeah.
And you were saying, weren't they at a great price point? I mean, I bet they weren't a lot. And
they're great. Yeah.
I mean, you could really
they were
use
great
them.
Value. Absolutely.
Frankly, we saw so many things that we were shocked at how inexpensive they were, and really affordable and usable, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, things that we can. I mean, I found so many things I want to source.
They hooked up with a lot of great new resources for clients for your jobs. This wasn't just pretend. I mean, you really made relationships and saw things.
And if you're going to dabble in trend, it's great that it's accessible and that it's affordable, because it's going to change. So
that's smart.
Also, decorating. I think the way people decorate now, and the way, at least I find with my projects, is people want a mixture of high and low in their interiors.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But the things here don't even look low.
No.
They looked like we couldn't believe, like in the geometric, that chair, the white chair. You were saying it was for.
I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, it really looked expensive.
No, it's the look you get. It's getting that look, but
And I loved
mixing it up.
I thought that was so interesting about the nod to the grand tour to the antiquities, and they weren't antiquities that were spun to look modern. I liked the way they looked like themselves. They looked old, but they were in kind of an unexpected ways, like a pillow or a.
Well, and it's not all antiquity. It's just thrown into some really modern settings, so it looks really fresh.
Like those angel wings that you said were like.
It's the references, I think, to the grand tour and things that are classic.
But
classic lines. It could be as simple as I showed that Gorrivan. But I mean, there were so many classical sort of columnar legs and bases on furnishings. So it's just again, it's not so overt. It's those nuances that you see everywhere.
And it's funny to think of antiquities as being unexpected, and I think we've talked about that a lot, about the key to design. We were talking about this morning, about rooms that have that unexpected element, even if it is referencing a classic.
Yeah, and it gives it a little bit of an edge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what you don't see all the time, and so that's what's keeping it. It's just fresh to see that.
Yeah.
I thought the geometric trend part was great. I loved. I thought even just whether it was on that pillow or, as you said, why don't you repeat the word for the 12-sided object?
Dodecahedron.
Say it again.
Dodecahedron.
You could say it all day and it would sound great.
Again?
But I just love that it's not just on a table, but you can use those unexpected geometric shapes in your lighting fixtures and bring a kind of edge to above and structure. You know, it gives it a structure.
And that's the thing. I think we've seen so much geometric, so much geometry in prints and in textiles over the past 10 years. You know, the David Hicks look was very big for a long time.
Right.
And it's sort of refreshing to see these shapes and forms
in an actual shape,
and used in different ways.
It's also
very they are beautiful, and they work so beautiful. Sorry,
that's okay.
They work. They're perfect counterbalance when you're decorating a room to things that are more organic and foliate.
Yeah.
It's also very architectural instead of decoratory. It was all kind of very architectural.
Yeah.
Without looking overly modern. That's what I liked about it. They didn't look so specifically modern. It could be. They could work with anything.
Anything.
All right, great. So now we're going to talk about what Betsy found. And you had some interesting trends. One for us girls, feminine, fashion, and all-American. So let's see what you loved, and then we can chat about it.
I love this mirror because it's got a lot about it that's feminine. It's shiny. It's highly decorative. It's got lots of curves. It's mirror-framed mirror, so it's doubly as reflective. But I think I love it most because it's used in this showroom with all of these industrial pieces that are so hard-edged, and even, it's more about the feminine versus the masculine that's exciting, and it's new to me. So this is a classic roll-arm sofa, covered in a washed burlap. It's got a great bench seat. It's got lots of fun throw pillows. What makes it feminine are the details. And I think this scallop along the bottom is fantastic. I've never seen anything like it. And the nail heads following the scallop shape make it a lot of fun. I think the styling is fantastic. It's up against a dark wall, weathered wood end table, sort of iron top table. All of these masculine elements really make it stand out and keep it from being too girly. This is a fantastic chinoiserie coffee table. Classic fretwork design. What makes it feminine is the fact that, well, it's white, it's highly decorative, and what's cool about it is it's carved out of marble, so it's sort of a cold, hard material made really, really patterned and light and airy. I would use it as the star of a living room. One of the biggest trends in fashion the past year is lace. And I've seen it from couture to the mall. So lace is everywhere in fashion, and it's also been everywhere here at the market. We've seen a lot of lace bedding, we've seen lace pillows, lace fabric, but I think it's really cool to find a piece that represents lace that's done in a hard material. And this mirror is made completely out of capiz shell. So it's a natural hard material that's been sculpted to look like a piece of lace. Well, plaid and gingham is everywhere in the fashion industry, and not just in menswear, in women's wear, everywhere. And it's definitely made the crossover to interior design. We're seeing so many plaids and houndstooths and window panes and ginghams in all sorts of colors, all sorts of scales. I love this because my design is classic and I always like something that's old school. So I could see using this window pane as a drape fabric. And I could also see using one of these houndstooths in a crazy way, covering a sofa in bright green, just to give it a fresh life. Maybe even throwing some leopard onto that window pane, and all of a sudden you've brought something new to the picture. I've seen polka dot furniture, I've seen polka dot fabric, I've seen polka dot used in light fixtures, accessories, but my favorite polka dot of the market is this polka dot used on a rug. What's fantastic about it is it's been kind of deconstructed, so it's more of an ethnic print than a true dot, and that makes it, usable in so many different ways and in so many different spaces. I can't think of anything more American than a quilt. It's handmade, it's got that really old school kind of preppy Nantuckety vibe, and I mean, especially in red, white, and blue, so American, so old school. I love these because they've even got denim on the back, which I think is fantastic. I think they look best when you mix everything together, like maybe some gingham, maybe some stripes, maybe I'd use monogram pillows just to give it a little bit more of that preppy flair. Bobbin chairs came to this country from England in colonial times, but since then they've come to represent a distinctly New England sensibility. And my design style is classic, and so I love to anchor every room with a piece that's really timeless and speaks for itself, and I think this bobbin chair really does that. I mean, the distinct shape that's beautiful from the front or from the back. It's like a piece of sculpture. And in this case, to add to the patriotism, it's covered in a blue and white ticking stripe, which I think is very, very high American, and makes it casual, which I love. It's not stuffy at all. Another really good example of the Americana trend here at the market is this rug, which is done in a Native American print. I think this is fantastic. I'm looking at this as a new geometric. I love geometric rugs. I love the fact that it's two-color. It keeps it really sophisticated. And you can use this in almost any setting. I mean, it can go really classic with tailored pieces in a traditional room, or it can go a little bit more bohemian. I think I'd mix it in and use it with a hot pink sofa. So I take a little bit of Americana and give it a twist.
Okay, I loved so many things there. Let's talk about the feminine category first. Those mirrors, the first mirror that you see in the opening, and I love how it was paired with the industrial table.
Well, that's kind of that was my surprise, because I don't know if anyone knows my work, it's not particularly girly. So that was my surprise, to find femininity appealing. And I love those mirrors.
And that the one that looked like lace that you said was the seashell. I mean, that was gorgeous.
Really, really good.
Were you guys with her in that showroom? Did you?
We were. Yeah.
That whole
I saw
showroom
I
was
love
good.
it. There are so many. I
There are
thought
a
there
lot
were so
of
many
things.
soft lines everywhere.
Yeah,
at
that was
Market.
another
Even-
thing, curved sofa backs.
Even industrial things.
Exactly.
I'd say
Yeah.
even some of the metal pieces that we saw in some of the
Had a
showrooms
curve to them.
were
They're
curvy.
also
yeah.
they're finer. It's like we've been seeing a lot of really chunky industrial furniture, and suddenly it's still steel, it's still metal, but it's thinner, it's flatter, it's
Yeah,
finer.
More refined. It
So
was
that's
Yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah.
In the fashion, I loved how you were saying to me this morning about how, of course, gingham, plaid, polka dots, and now we're seeing it directly translated into the home. And I loved when you put the different fabrics together and you had the large kind of blue and white gingham, and then you threw in the leopard.
Well, that's
which would
kinda
look,
how I do. That's
but that would
kinda
look,
how I do
that would
it.
just instantly made me want to see that in a room. I thought that was
Good,
fantastic.
that's great. Me too. Well, I mean, that's timeless. That's not going anywhere. Those plaids and those ginghams and those stripes. So you can, the pillow is negotiable. It can go with the trend if it's leopard, if it's floral.
You know, you also mentioned polka dots. It actually was really funny because we were
Oh,
out
yeah.
in the showrooms, and it got to a point where we were like, polka dots, polka
We saw
dots,
so
'cause
many.
they were
I could've-
everywhere.
And of
could've
course,
done
they're on the
polka
J.
dot.
Crew catalog for the fall, right? She's wearing
On
a
the
polka dot
sweater.
Louis
sweater.
Vuitton's doing
And then
it.
at Whitney, at the Whitney, isn't there a what's the
The
Japanese
window-
artist
the
with
window-
the?
That's it,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she's at the Whitney, and also in the windows of Louis Vuitton,
He's doing the polka
collaboration with
dots.
the
So
Japanese
where do
They're
these
like
things
used-
come
they were
from?
subtle too. Like there'd be lampshades that were pierced.
Just,
Right.
Yeah.
oh,
Polka dots.
right.
Like,
And coffee tables the same.
right.
But I loved those rugs because it didn't feel too polka dotty. It was just
No,
a subtle.
It was really almost ethnic,
Uh-huh.
but still a dot. So I thought those were fabulous. I'm going to use those.
And then on the last trend on the Americana, you were saying that for so long, and at Market we talk about the globalization of design, which is fabulous. And you were like, how many more times can we talk about ICAD or this or that? And
I couldn't do it again.
You couldn't do it again, and yet you saw. You see a reference to the great old classics, but I loved that black chair that you said almost was like sculpture with the
bobbin chair.
Americana blue and white fabric
Yeah,
paired with it.
Yeah, well,
so it
and-
wasn't sort of blah Americana, it was.
No, it's gutsy, and it really, it's just a strong statement. And I mean, I've used those bobbin chairs in more refined silk linens too.
Ah,
They
yeah.
can be very dressed up, but I loved seeing it that way. It really was old
Betsy,
school.
did you see my shirt I'm wearing? I wore this for you today.
I know, I appreciate
It's
it.
plaid and it's red, white, and blue.
I love
Nice.
it. I love it. But
There
see,
was
who's right on
also-
trend? I mean, look, you've got to.
We're on trend.
Yeah.
On trend.
The whole bobbin thing, there was a kind of traditional bobbin, and then there was more Portuguese feeling, like blown out,
Right,
really on
right.
the
We
bed.
saw both. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's that kind of, it's slightly unexpected Americana. I think we're away from that one note, the same thing, and it was more subtle, and I loved that.
Well, I love flags. I mean, I decorate with flags, so it just has an appeal to me. Caught my eye right away.
And those quilts were gorgeous too.
Quilts were
They were
great.
beautiful.
And
I
they
wouldn't
were-
expect to see that here.
Well, and it wasn't.
It looked like you were in
doesn't have to
Nantucket,
be- It
like-
doesn't have to be corny. It can be really, really old school.
And
We
cozy and
didn't
elegant.
must
expect
feel
to
like-
see it either.
yeah.
I mean, we didn't expect to see all of this Americana. It just kept coming up
Yeah.
and up and
Yeah.
up again and again and
Huh.
again.
And we're all going back and watching the Olympics. So
You
then
were
we're
wondering, yeah, with the,
realizing,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost finding, we haven't seen Darren's yet, but I almost feel like the mega trend here is, and we're all onto something, which is it's taking these traditional designs and forms and seeing them used in different ways.
Yeah,
I mean, whether it is the color or it's lace or
yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah. It's keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Darren. You saw, to segue into Americana, American crafts, which we'll see, which was super interesting, traditional patterns, but then conversely, exotic materials. So let's see what you mean by that.
Great. One of the things that I found at Market is everything American. And I don't know if it's because of the Olympics or if it's because an election year, and we actually talked about this a lot with the other two designers and I. But there definitely seems to be this kind of go USA team here in Las Vegas, Nevada. These are American hook drugs. American hook drugs were made in the 1830s, and they originally were made out of scraps of old fabrics or yarns or threads, and they've really bumped up the quality of them by using really consistent materials, and they've also recolored them. This is a very traditional pattern for a hooked rug, and then this is an example of a much more contemporary pattern, also done in a hooked rug. And yet more things, all American crafts, were in another showroom, And they have other things that are from the American industry and American crafts. These are spools, which would have been used in the textile industry here in the United States. And they have balls of twilled yarn, and these actually are what would have been used to make the hooked rugs we saw in the other showroom. I would love to be able to take credit for finding this piece, but I have to give credit where credit is due. We were walking by the window and Philip Gorrivan saw this. And honestly, it's not something I would have looked at. I would have walked right past it. But then Philip brought us in here, got us to really look at it, and I have to say, it became the all-time showstopper for all three of us. This is a fantastic example of craft. This is just such a beautifully painted cabinet. And the other thing that's really great about this that we did see examples of is this is a 19th century cabinet which has been recently painted, so it's kind of a reuse of old material. And we all fell in love with it. The last piece about American crafts that I want to talk about is good old Moby Dick. Typically these were made out of found pieces of driftwood, and they were carved in beach communities like Nantucket, Cape Cod, and Maine. And being a good old Yankee boy myself, I grew up with these and have a particular affection for these. Growing up, my father was in the textile industry, so I kind of have this passion or obsession for textiles and rugs. So this place was like Mecca to me. What's really interesting about the market that I've seen is they've taken very traditional fabrics and patterns from fabrics and rugs and recolored them for the American market and made them more palatable or kind of more hip and more fashion forward. These are icots, which they've recolored and made in silks. These are actually based on Susanna patterns, and then here's a more traditional pattern. But you can see the colors are completely new, completely different, much more fashion forward. Another pattern or technique that actually dates back to Renaissance Europe is flame stitching or a chevron pattern. And here it's colored in a red, white, and blue, which is very different from what originally would have been used. A trend that I found here in Las Vegas was super high-end materials that have been used for centuries, used in a different way and much more economically so that they're affordable to market. In Mughal, India, in Rajasthan, the Mughal princes built these massive, massive palaces, and they would take little tiny pieces of convex mirror and they would push it into their plaster walls. So you would have these huge rooms just covered with these convex mirrors. And here at Made Goods, they're making panels of it, and then they're also making other things with it. They're making tabletops with it, and the great thing about Made Goods is they'll do custom. So you literally could do panels that covered an entire room. Another thing that I found here that I thought was really great is Tsarist Russia. Tsarist Russia, they would take malachite, which is a semi-precious material found in Russia, and they would make amazing tables. And these tables now at market are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these guys are taking malachite and they're doing mirror frames and they're doing these little platters and just really great things that are affordable. Another material that I've seen used several times here at the show is something called églamisé. Églamisé is either painting or silver and gold leaf on the back of mirror. Now, this technique is particularly high-end because in the 18th and 19th century, it was used in palaces and really, really grand houses. And then in the 20s and the 40s of the 20th century, it was used by French manufacturers such as Janssen for very, very site-specific, super high-end furniture. And here it is on an incredibly affordable piece of furniture, and I think it looks really great. Now, although this isn't a very high-end material that's being used really creatively, this I flipped out over. I thought this was amazing. This is just a piece of wood. They burn the piece of wood, and then while the wood's still hot, they encase it in resin so that the resin does all of this kind of crackling and bubbling, and you get this beautiful lamp, which I think retails for like $400, which is insane.
So I loved, and I hope that you guys will take a little cue from this, I love how you see things through the other's eyes and get excited about something that you walked right past that chest. And then Phil was like, wait a minute, this is kind of great, because it wasn't in your sort of design lexicon of what you normally see. And then once you kind of isolated and you were all looking at it, it became your fave.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right.
That was the market favorite.
Yeah. And that's the power of traveling.
It was.
Together, which we never have
Yeah.
the luxury to do. So when you go to market today, if you can bring a friend, even if they have the exact opposite taste, sometimes that that yin-yang of eyes is really important, because your instinct, I think we tend to edit ourselves, right? Like, oh, that's not for me.
It's not what I do. And the other thing is, like, don't bring a friend. Bring somebody who owns the store down the street from you that ordinarily you think is competition, and see what they're looking at. And because you're not in competition, you're going to have a different take on it. You're going to use it in a different way.
A frenemy. A frenemy?
A frenemy. Bring a frenemy. It's Bring a Frenemy Day in Las Vegas. Yeah.
I loved, if we talk about the American crafts, I love how you said about the rugs. Well, those rugs were insane. They were great. The first one, when you said that it was a traditional hook pattern, but it was kind of blown out. It was sort of bigger than usual. And then the other ones, the chevron that had those crazy colors, but it was based on traditional. I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah. And also, like, you saw the hand in a lot of stuff. You saw the hand in so much of the stuff. And even with the semi-precious materials, same thing. Like, there's another trend. Instead of things being machine made, you kept seeing how it was made, who touched it. That was really interesting. And also, you know, with the rugs, they're not just recoloring them, they're bleaching them, they're over-dyeing them, they're stripping them.
They're super bright and really, I mean,
Right.
this is the first thing we went to. We had to go look at
I thought
those.
rugs, that was an exciting category here.
Yeah,
So-
so
there are a lot of
rugs
rugs,
were really
yeah.
good
It
here.
would be easy to be a little scared about some of those rugs, like to somebody, the one that was that super color, the red and yellow and the black, the first one that we saw. How would you use that in a room?
Think
How
about
would you?
using really quiet furniture with it. I mean, modern, clean.
See, I would actually bump it
counterbalance
up.
it.
I would bump
You
it up.
counterbalance it with, I mean,
You would
just
bump it
balance
up?
with
I
something
would
else
do like
strong.
high
You'd go
gloss,
over the top.
dark walls
Right.
with that really intense rug and
Right.
just make this crazy intense room.
Well, there you go. So two different
Right.
ways of
Right.
looking at it. Each would work. So either quiet it out or bump it up.
Bump it up.
More is more.
More is more.
And then more is even better.
And again, we've just talked about it, but the exotic materials, seeing the hand in a lot of things. I don't think, we went through a time of sort of the organic materials and the raw materials, which was very refreshing a couple of years ago. And now to go a step further and see a manipulation of materials through a craftsman's talent
And
is
it
exciting.
Adds,
also exciting,
it adds
yeah.
texture, it adds like
Yeah.
another layer.
And personality.
Absolutely.
It's also exciting to walk around and not just see furniture that's so pared down, but embellished in different ways.
You're right.
We just
I
did,
think that's a trend.
And embellished, you mean
Yeah.
by what?
Just
Like by the.
embellished, whether it's with shells or with malachite or whatever.
We saw a lot of animals
yeah.
also.
But things that are decorated.
We just did
Nicely.
in New York, I just did a powder room for somebody. In the entire room, we did custom Acclaimed walls and the ceiling, and it cost tens of thousands of dollars. And to walk into these showrooms and to see Acclaimed being used on furniture that's $200, $500, $1,000, that's
So
kind
those
of-
things were still at a very good price point, even the exotic materials.
Yeah, no, it's all still incredibly reasonable, incredibly affordable.
Yeah, we were surprised.
And kind of an
overnight.
obsession of mine years ago, about 12 years ago, I went all through Rajasthan, India, and those convex mirrors pushed into
Yeah, those were
plastic
gorgeous.
have been in my head for 12
Really?
years. And I walked into Made Goods, and they're doing it. I was like, oh my God, I've been looking for somebody to do this, and they'll do it custom.
Oh.
So that was amazing.
Who's
that
going
was
to be
great.
next? Who's going to use those next?
I don't know.
Maybe you.
Somebody's getting them somewhere.
Yeah.
And even when you talked about that kind of Americana thing is not really for me, but the Nantucket whale, which I love, we're both going there in a couple weeks, we're
Right.
excited. And that whale, that Nantucket whale, is such an icon, that preppy Americana icon. But I loved how it looked slightly different. It didn't look like the typical one that you see. It almost looked morphed a little bit, like slightly...
Abstract.
Abstract is the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for,
It's
exactly.
also the material, like, ordinarily I look at something and I say, it's not made out of what it's supposed to be made out of, and it bothers me. And the fact that that was made out of this plaster instead of real carved wood, I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting. And just, I have to say, that lamp, that burned wood.
Yeah, that was cool.
Again, my obsession is with technique.
Uh-huh.
And the technique of that was fantastic.
And again, and
really
it
liked
didn't
that.
make it
Yeah.
unaffordable just because it was that...
It was cheap. It wasn't affordable. It was really reasonable.
It's a lot of look, which is
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
That's a good phrase, a lot of look. And I liked how you said about it's okay for things to look decorated. I think we almost got away from the decorated look for a while where it was like the bad word, like this looks too decorated, we have to pare everything down. But then of course maybe everything got a little bit boring. So to weave in personality and technique and decoration.
Well,
Layers.
the painted furniture looked fresh again.
Yes, you were
Come
saying
full
that, the painted
circle.
furniture, not shabby chic kind of
Right.
thing,
No,
but
it's new again, and
Uh-huh.
we all liked it. We all responded to
That
it.
painted cabinet. Philip
that was
saw it.
really
We were
special.
walking down the hallway. Philip
You
saw it.
kind
and
of
he was like,
poo-pooed
oh,
it,
look at
actually.
that.
You what?
Do you remember? You kind of poo-pooed it.
I totally
Yeah.
poo-pooed it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm not doing painted furniture. And then we walked in there and I was like, this is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
so beautifully done.
Yeah.
And that was one of the more expensive items that we saw. But it was beautiful.
But also, they said that they could take any design.
Any piece of
Yeah, they
furniture.
do
any piece of
everything
furniture,
custom.
any design.
Okay, so that's another
You send
thing I
them
want.
a design, and so that's the other thing. It's amazing finding a resource like that.
so the
It's also
customization,
custom,
you guys are,
inexpensive.
so you guys have brought that up a little bit. There's been a couple of pieces. So if you guys see something that you love and you don't just assume that that's the way it is, that there are possibilities that
More and more
so-
vendors
That's
told
how
us
we're
that.
used to
That was how they
decorating,
greeted us. They said,
right?
you know, we do
Yeah.
it all custom.
really.
All custom.
Yeah.
So the fact that you can, I always just assumed that you have to go to fancy workrooms to have things
customization,
done in a
but you
custom
don't.
way, but I was pleasantly surprised, as we all were, that you could go into a place like
Well,
Made
everyone
Goods.
in the industry is more
and-
flexible now,
Yeah.
so that's one
Yeah,
of
you
the
have to be.
advantages of
So
that.
were they
Within
saying
limitation, I'm
customization with
sure.
size and material and
Uh,
color, everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good to know, right? Today, when you go there, don't be afraid to say, I love this, but I'm just wondering, can you do this? Because you're saying design industry has to be, they want to be more flexible. They would love your business
They
at
want to
least.
sell.
Right.
They want to
wanna
sell.
and they don't want to be so rigid with trends. They want you to say, this is what I sell. This is what works for me.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you could replace the word trends that we're talking about here today with just what excited you. And I think that's like the most important element in design and when you go to a market is be excited, get out there, excite your eye, inspire yourself, and don't pre-edit too much because even the pros, you know, you learn, it's fun because you guys have never been here before, so you're really starting from scratch. And
it was really about keeping an open mind and just seeing what our gut reactions were to things. And we'd have these reactions and we'd take the picture and we'd cut back and then we'd figure it out.
Right. Yeah, this was all about, this picture wall was all about, it was like an editorial meeting. It was all about connecting the dots.
We probably had dozens more pictures.
We did.
that
We
didn't even
got
have.
rid of a lot.
And just to, in wrapping it up before we go to Q&A, kudos to you guys because these guys hit the ground running from the airport, came here, went through the whole show, had to pick, film, and then filming. That it wasn't like it took you 6 months to do that. You guys were amazing, and I'm feeling like the excitement of the market and what you found really helped guide you in your words
It
because
made it
you
easy.
seemed it made it easy.
Well, I made 2 new friends.
And they,
that
I
was
know.
good too.
Yeah, Love Fest.
That's
Love
one of the
Fest.
best things about.
We're not frenemies either.
No, we're not.
And you're not
We're
frenemies,
friends now.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I do want to have a little bit of time for any kind of Q&A that you might want to ask them before we break. It could be about specific pieces. It could be about trends in general. I think we have a microphone that we can hand around. Does anyone have a question? Yes.
You mentioned the gray tones are gone. Are you talking about washed out gray tone furniture? Is that the strong trend? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
I think they
furniture's
can-
there, the furniture's everywhere. The finishes, and we saw that actually as a trend. The cerused oak and the painted, not the painted gray, kind of the stripped gray is everywhere. But the grayed off, the European grayed off paint tones, the very English grayed off paint tones, they seem to be fading, and there's a lot of bright and primary and really intense color.
Well,
But-
also, I think it's just the fact that gray tones, I love gray, it's my neutral for most projects, but I personally have been feeling a little starved for color. And, you know, maybe it's just the subtle, it's, you know, walking into a showroom and seeing a red stool, I don't know, I was just drawn to it. It's just really exciting. I think we've all been starved a bit for color and design.
And I think it's important to pay attention to what makes you happy. Wow, I clearly seem to, red makes you happy, you know,
Yeah,
and to
it
pay
makes you
attention to
happy.
that and say, I'm obviously getting an emotional reaction every time I see a room without a rug. I don't know why that is, but clearly that's something that gives me a rise or whatever color or texture or, so pay attention to what you have an emotional reaction to and kind of keep track
That's a
because
good point.
life is short. Bring it into your home and keep yourself happy with it. Do we have any other questions? Yes. Here, let's give you a microphone.
Were there any trends that you expected to see but didn't see?
Oh, that's a good question.
Interesting. That's a great question.
We were really so trying to have no expectation.
Yeah.
We almost sat on our hands, like, okay, don't say anything, just go in and react. So I actually don't think that we were allowing ourselves to do that.
Yeah.
Were there any trends that are still around? Like we were saying, like the industrial
Plenty.
look, the raw wood.
Industrial is
still going strong?
everywhere.
Yeah. And the nail head, the whole nail head thing, but it's no longer, I mean, you're going to see nail head everywhere today.
everywhere.
And it's still very rectilinear, but we also saw it many times, like in this very curvaceous
Used in more artistic ways.
Yeah.
In more artistic ways. Interesting. Yeah, I like that. Instead of the very masculine, it was that curvaceous, the bottom of that sofa that you loved.
Yeah,
Right,
and
we
by
saw
the way,
that.
the ethnic global, I mean, that's
I think I sort of
still-
expected that.
I did
Yeah,
too.
that's true.
But
And
that
you
was-
saw
I did
it.
too, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's been
We
a big
did.
trend for a while now, the ECAT. And,
But there was
It was
that
still
ECAT that
ethnic.
was in an unexpected way itself in your rug.
It was
Well,
also
recolored.
an ECOT made in silk.
Yeah.
It was an ECOT
Right.
made in silk, which an ECOT wouldn't ordinarily be made in silk, and then the color was intense.
So that's interesting. Yes, Leslie. Oh, let's give you a microphone.
Did you see any trends in showroom display?
Trends in showroom display.
Trends and showrooms.
Well,
Huh.
I liked how Lexington Home Brands they had displayed their new Aquarius collection, and I think a very styled way. I mean, I think I saw a lot more styling, a lot more merchandising in showrooms.
Instead of just
Yeah.
walking in and
Right.
seeing
It
everything.
wasn't
Did it,
things. I mean, they had a room set. It was like this lovely,
It was
chic
curated.
room
Yes.
set.
It was like a gallery.
Curated.
It was like going.
right.
There were all these podiums, and all the furniture was on
Yeah.
individual podiums.
So it was
and
thoughtfully
platforms.
staged.
Thoughtfully
Yeah,
staged.
it wasn't just stuff in a room.
because sometimes you go into showrooms at shows
Yeah.
and it's just,
Every-
I mean, it's
Everything's
hard to
just-
take it all in and it's hard to, I think it's important to pull pieces out like that cabinet and you can really admire it out of context.
Yeah.
Well, I think also, I guess, if you don't have the space, it's really, really important to edit it because you don't want to put.
To overwhelm.
It's not a
Yeah,
don't.
if we did see a showroom that was a little too chock full,
We
we didn't go in it.
Yeah.
We were more
Kind of
drawn
avoided
to
it.
To thoughtful staging.
Yeah.
to the vignettes.
Edited.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the same with retail now too. I find I'm very drawn to retail stores that are very curated and edited.
They're
versus
giving us
ones-
ideas. They're
department
giving us
stores.
inspiration.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Did you happen to get over into Building A on the first floor, the Phillips collection?
The what? I'm sorry.
The Phillips collection, did you happen to get over there to Building A
I'm familiar
on
with
first
it
floor?
from, you're at High Point as well.
I was just so impressed. They have
Yeah.
chairs made from seat belt material, and it was
Yeah.
so comfortable. They had the vibrant colors.
Oh,
Right.
I
It was
saw
Yeah,
those,
yeah.
the woven
Yes.
bench metal
Yeah, yeah.
woven
Really
thing. Yeah, those were
neat.
very cool. Those were
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, that was again another example of technique. It was a new technique.
Yeah, and materials used differently.
Right.
A new way of using an old material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salma, did someone? Oh, here, we'll get you a microphone.
For each of you, what was your favorite piece that really stood out at this market?
I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised by Lexington Home Brands and this new collection that they launched, particularly this orange chest that looked like an Hermes box.
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
And
Really
I just thought it was
fabulous.
fitted really beautifully, and the details were nice, and I think the price point was very attractive as
Right.
well.
And also, I mean, we looked at that and kind of immediately you started talking about doing an entire dressing room.
Right.
Which it's, using what you're seeing as inspiration.
Right. I guess what was appealing to it was not only the color, but as we had touched on, as you had touched on, Darren, just the materials, new materials, employing new materials in different ways.
Yeah.
And you know what I liked? I liked Capel rugs. I thought those Genevieve Gorder rugs, and I talked about the polka dot one, I thought those were standouts. I'll use them. That's right up my alley. I thought those were great.
Yeah.
Darren, how about you?
It was the painted cabinet. I mean,
Yeah.
oddly, it wasn't what I looked at, it wasn't what I chose, and then it became my obsession because I use more old furniture than I do new furniture. I use more antiques than I do new furniture, and the fact that he's doing new painted finishes on old pieces
Is
kind of gives
exciting,
me both. It's,
yeah.
Are these
it's
two
fresh.
cabinets, are they on hold?
I know. It was
We
this
know
close.
how much they
Judy, can I
cost.
just tell you something? A little bit of an aside. I have a warehouse full of furniture in my basement at my country house. If I came home with those two cabinets, I'd be dead. I'd be dead. Literally, it's.
Well, you don't have to come home with them.
Yeah, I mean,
Nobody
just
has
delay.
to know.
Yeah, okay, fine.
There's ways to get around that.
What cabinets? What are you talking about?
Yeah. I always try to gaslight my husband. He'll say like, "Is that new? Honey, we've had that for years."
You hide it
Oh my
in your
God,
closet
I'm
for
worried
months.
for you.
You do, yeah.
I do that all the time, different pillows, or there's ways to get around.
I'm glad you're not
Yeah.
the only one.
Does
I'm
anyone
not the
else
only
do
one.
that?
Yeah.
Or like you park and you like run out with the thing and put
Right,
it somewhere.
What bag?
Anyone else? Yes?
Did you happen to see any great, exciting dining room furniture or tables that you thought were exquisite for the dining room? Anything different or unique? in
It's a
that
dining
fit?
room table or a coffee table?
Well,
Dining room
I don't know what the
tables?
question was.
Do
Well,
we
your
see any
white
dining room
table-
furniture? Do we see any great dining room furniture?
We
Yeah.
saw a few nice dining tables in that one showroom.
At Noir?
Noir, they had some
At
interesting
Noir?
At
dining
Noir, they
tables
had-
with those
they have
classical
really good-
bases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was also in another showroom, there was a chair. There was a French square-backed upholstered nail-head trim chair that we've all seen 10,000
Like a Louis
times.
XVI
And it
style?
was free. I mean, it was like $150 for this chair.
Oh, yeah.
That was
I know,
amazing.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's up here. It's somewhere in the
We have a
middle.
It's up
picture of
there
it?
somewhere.
Yeah.
And then there was also the
It's right there. It's second from the end in that first bay.
the white table and the chairs, the white lacquered, that they were derivative. They were a copy of some other designer who is, I'm not a modernist. You guys would know more than I
Oh,
do.
it was the Saarinen, the
The
tulips.
Saarinen,
Saarinen, yeah.
right.
The
And those were
tulip.
great looking and reasonable.
Yeah.
By the way, I thought that that you showed in the feminine category, that lace marble coffee table
Oh,
was
yeah.
to die for. That
Oh,
was
yeah,
gorgeous.
that was a global use.
Yeah.
That was great.
Anyone else? Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have an incredibly exciting market the way we have had. We are here for a little bit if you want to come up and if you have any questions. If not, have a fabulous day and a great market. And thank you to Las Vegas Market for hosting us. We had a blast. Thank you guys.
Thank you.